on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us on today's session on Ordinary Voices. My name is Valdivia Virginia. I'm the current GYF ambassador and your host for today's session. It is a pleasure to be here. Before we begin, allow me to introduce GYF, and then we'll be able to introduce our guests for the day. So at Global Youth Forum, we have different, we are a CBO currently, but our vision is to be a leading NGO in Africa, supporting young people in co-creating a better future for themselves. And our programs that we have currently, we do have our Ordinary Voices, which is ongoing at the moment. It is a platform where we provide a safe and inclusive platform for young people, young Kenyans across the globe to discuss issues affecting their communities, to propose solutions, ways of mitigating some of our problems, and of course, mobilize like-minded individuals to implement the same solutions. So that's for Ordinary Voices. Then for Molding for Work, it's a platform where we engage students from higher learning institution to join our one-year scholarship program. And our program entails 8 units, whereby we are able to train the students for, depending on the students who are engaging in the program, we're able to train them on the 3 phases. We have a pre-training challenge, we have a student-centered training, and of course, the post-training challenge. And then we also have, and of course, through our Molding for Work program, this could be able to provide opportunities for our young people to be able to volunteer with GYF. And then, of course, we do have sessions in the program that entail internship, apprenticeships, and volunteering to be able to equip our young people with the skills they need to be able to either engage at the workplace or create a job for themselves. Then we do have Sports for SDGs, whereby GYF provides an inclusive global sporting platform to enable collaborations between like-minded institutions, that is the universities, organizations, companies, communities. And basically, we're using the 17 sports to develop and advocate for projects. So by 17 SDGs, to be able to develop and advocate for a project to address each of the United Nations SDG goals, that is the Sustainable Development Goals. And so we use sports as a tool to mobilize resources to implement some of the projects that we undertake. And of course, almost last but not least, we have Archery for the Goals, which is where we're using archery as an individual sport to be able to provide practical goal-setting skills to the young people. And then our Football for Peace, which is our major tournament, where is a major event we have is GYF, whereby we involve young players, whereby it's an annual tournament, and we usually engage around 17 teams to be able to play together, play against each other. And it's usually 17 teams comprised of both the male and the women. So we engage both genders through our 17 teams to be able to participate in the annual tournament. And at this juncture, allow me to welcome our guests for the day. I would like them to introduce themselves, be able to share who they are, what they do, and what is their favorite SDG. And last but not least, what change would they want to see in the world? So for our guest today, Madam Victoria, Mr. Mokera, welcome to the session. To our listeners, Karibuni Sana. We have a platform where you can be able to engage with us. Feel free to share your questions in the chat, and also feel free to be able to engage with us even after the session. So for now, allow me to introduce our guests. I kindly request that you turn our video on, tell us who you are, what you do, your favorite SDG, and what change you want to see in the world. So, I think we can start off with Madam Victoria, if you're okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Victoria Ndenya Philip. I'm the Executive Director of Women for Women Empowerment CBO in Machakos County. I'm also the Chairperson of Mandana working in Matungulu Sub-County. I'm also a gender-based violence survivor, using technology to empower my women and my community. I'm also one of the recognized heroes in this country, the year 2021, by the retired president for the good work I've been doing for my community.
Thank you so much for that. And what is your favorite SDG goal?
Wow, my favorite SDG is 5.
Okay.
Gender equality and the fighting for the rights of women and the girls, and also ending all forms of violence and promoting women leadership, that is gender equality.
Thank you. And what change would you like to see in the world?
Wow. As one of a leader in my community, the changes I would want to see in my community, to see my women fully empowered, and even my women to know where to report in case of gender-based violence issues, and advocate for my community in terms of leadership and the projects on the ground.
Thank you so much, Madam Victoria. So now we go to Mwakera. Please introduce yourself. Tell me who you are, what is your favorite SDG goal, and what change you want to see in the world.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. My good name is Emmanuel Mwakera. I work for a community organization called Connect to Retain. We are based in the coastal region. We do programming around issues around health and gender, education, economic empowerment, policy advocacy, and livelihood and such like stuff. I work as a policy and advocacy lead, and also support monitoring and evaluation interventions. My favorite SDG is, I think, SDG 1. It encompasses the entire union, ending poverty and all forms of poverty. I think that's the whole nature. I believe if we can foresee a situation where we have equal rights and equal opportunities, I'll have lived a life well lived in this earth. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And also to our listeners, I just want to know that the conversation for today, we are asking the question, what is the role of the NGOs or CSOs towards the attainment of Sustainable Development Goals by 2030? And so to our guests, thank you so much for joining us. For those who are listening to us, feel free to ask questions, feel free to raise anything on our social media platforms. And of course, in terms of engagement, do not forget our hashtags, which is together we are strong, and of course, football for peace. So at the moment, let me just dive into the conversation. I hope our guests are ready. So the first question, which goes to all of you, is, in your experience, how do because of course you told me you work for the CBOs, so how do they contribute to the successful implementation of sustainable development goals at the grassroots level? Because as both of you have mentioned, you work in different counties, you work at the grassroots. So based on your experience, how has your CBO contributed to the successful implementation of SDGs at the grassroots level? So Mwakera, I'd like to request that you begin the conversation. So feel free to respond to that question.
Thank you. I think today being a Sunday, I hear the Holy Book says somewhere, my people will die because of lack of knowledge. So the first baby step that CSOs and NGOs do in the community is primarily knowledge-based, which is encompassed in terms of community engagement, empowerment, and education. So most CSOs, and for this case, for Connect to Retain, we educate community members about their rights, the available resources, the benefits of sustainable practices, subject to the various thematic areas that we program along. The other thing that CSOs come handy is basically on policy advocacy and development, holding accountable policymakers, proposing friendly policy just to have a good working environment, and by at large also informing the community about their rights and how they can shout out and who to reach for to gain. Capacity building is one of the key areas that we do, and this is quite multifaceted, from the lower levels of the common man to the higher levels of government officials. Like I said, knowledge is power. So we capacity enhance policymakers, duty bearers, and the communities on their various roles towards a sustainable, developed world. Yep. Beyond that, what is most commonly known is direct service interventions, service to humanities, from disaster management, healthcare provisions. We have organizations which offer education, food programming, and such like issues, which is the most common aspect here. I think just to mention but a few, I will allow my colleague to add into other inputs. However, I'd like to share our role in as Connect to Retain. with regards to our community. And I'll speak about probably what we do at governance level and at community levels, and probably what has been the impact. Like I said, for those who understand the history of CSOs work and NGOs, primarily the role of service to the population is a government role. We are here to complement government work. So by design, we do not reinvent the wheel. We just complement where there's less or advance where we feel there's more potential to be added into it. So for our case, most of our interventions are actually evidence-based. So our point of input is primarily just to set up tone on what is on the ground and what does the community want. Remember, we work for and on behalf of the community. So there's no alien thing that we are bringing on ground. All our programs are informed by the community, designed with the community, what we call a user-centered design. Some people call it a human-centered design and approach, such like issues. And like I said, we not only reach out to the beneficiaries, which is the general population, but also the policymaker, because technically it is the duty of the policymaker to serve the community. But of course, due to the myriad of challenges, including resources, technicalities, and the many challenges in our society, we have to come in hand. And that is the approach as Connect to Retain we are using in our engagement by and large within the community and also at governance level. Thank you so much, Val.
Thank you so much, Makera, for that feedback. Let's go to Madam Victoria. What would be your response to the question?
Yes, as Women for Women, what we mostly do, we identify gaps in the community, and also on the projects which has been done by the government, to see how the projects are being implemented on issues, and we also report about our community. Maybe in the case of gender-based violence issues, we monitor and report. We also provide we also identify those who have been affected, and we refer them to vocational centers for assistance. And also, as I said, being a gender-based violence survivor, this is one of the part which, as Women for Women, we always look for the issues and identify the issues with the community and assist them on where to report.
Thank you for that. Oh, okay, thank you so much for that. I see Dennis is in the house. So I kindly request that you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, your favorite SDG goal, and what change you want to see in the world. So Dennis, are you able to hear me? Kindly unmute.
Okay, thank you so much, Virginia. My name is Dennis Otieno Owor. I'm in the NGO sector. That is, I serve at the Federation of Women Lawyers Kenya. My favorite SDG goal is the one on gender equality. What was the last thing I was supposed to add?
What change would you like to see in the world?
What change I would like to see in the world? I would say numerous.
Give us one.
I would talk about world peace. That's the great one that I can just highlight right now.
Okay, thank you for that. And also, just before I let you go, we are answering the question in terms of your experience. How do the NGO, because you work for an NGO, how does it contribute to the successful implementation of the SDGs goal? And especially because you've said your favorite SDG goal is gender equality. So how does FIDE Kenya contribute to the successful implementation of gender equality at the grassroots level?
Okay, at the grassroots level, it goes through three facets. One, it does community forums, whereby people from FIDE Kenya or stakeholders working alongside FIDE Kenya are able to interact with the members of the community, highlighting various rights, giving them civic education on their rights, on the basic laws that are within the land. The second aspect that FIDA Kenya uses for purposes of being able to advance gender equality is through aspects of litigation, that is being able to enable access to justice for members of the community. The third aspect is in liaison with CBOs and like-minded partners at the grassroots level, so that it's not a must that the organization is everywhere, but it works with the various partnerships to be able to reach those at the most remote areas, to be able to access justice and to be able to know their rights. Yes.
Thank you for that. And I kindly request our guests, kindly let's leave our videos on as we proceed with the session. And to our next question, if you could highlight one key impactful collaboration between your CBO or NGO and other stakeholders that has significantly advanced your particular favorite SDG, what would it be? So for example, in your community, if you've worked with Kilifi for Mwakera, or you've worked with Machakos for Victoria, what would you say is one major achievement that you've had in terms of what is it called? In terms of contributing to the SDG goal that you are most passionate about? So Mwakera, I don't know if I should put you on the spot for this one. Kindly respond. You've been quiet the most.
Thank you. I think the most recent one, it is public knowledge that Kilifi County and Mombasa County have officially banned the consumption of mugoka in the two counties, both transportation and all forms of products from mugoka. That is an advocacy output by CSOs. It's been a journey. It has taken too long, but finally, both governments from Kilifi and Mombasa have replied to our cry, and that is a good advocacy output from the work we've done as CSOs. We've been on the ground doing campaigns, knowledge awareness. We have our partners who have established also rehabilitation centers, that those who do knowledge. And of course, Coast is well known for drugs and substance consumption. So this is not that much a desired step, but at least we are somewhere. And it being the latest development, we take huge pride in it. Secondly, I think one of the key major factors we've had is most after post the new constitution, most county government actually really struggled in terms of setting up their government structures. And it is we, the CSOs and NGOs, who have come into play in supporting them, in developing structures that are responsive and complement their duties as organization. That is a key highlight that we've probably achieved as a community. And of course, back in the days, just some 4 years ago, 2020, Kilifi was well known for teenage pregnancy and HIV/AIDS to a tune of around 30%. And 30 means 3 out of every 10 girls is actually pregnant. And by girls, we mean teens and 18s. And if that is the case, it brings other discussions. For example, issues around GBV, because all minors cannot be subjected to consent. So that means those are cases of defilement. In other instances, you could say 3 in every 10 girls in Kilifi County have also been defiled. A lot of them are good success story, with something to be known out there. And we were all over media with the same stories. But 4 years down the lane, we can comfortably say that Kilifi County is no longer in the red line, both in those indicators from HIV new infections to teenage pregnancy. We are now around 10%, and the figures can be low. Just as the KDHS is done after 4 years, but the current data around KHIS shows that we are actually doing well. And that is a heavy outcome from involvement as CSOs, especially in terms of interventions, empowerment of young girls, setting up community structures, and especially the issue around norms and misconceptions around sexual health and sexual education. And yeah, that is one key major highlight that we take huge pride of, especially within the Kilifi community. And finally, we've had cases of radicalization, especially attacks around here. Some years back, we could all remember Al-Shabaab attacks, rising of young gangs, were a common thing within the coastal region. But today, it's been a story that we read around history, and that is because of the interventions as partners and CSOs that we do in collaboration with various county and government agencies by and large. It's been long since we had an active case around Al-Shabaab attacks. The community works freely, people do 24/7 work. We are now having 24 hours economy by and large. The cross-section from Mombasa to Lamu Highway is now free. People travel freely. So that also calls for an acknowledgement from the input from CSO. The young gangs, especially in Mombasa, that were very common, are no longer a story that we are used to now. And yeah, peace, cohesion, justice is now a common thing. And we take huge pride as CSOs in terms of our footprints and our efforts in collaboration, of course, with county government and national government stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Makera. And I love the fact that you've actually mentioned about the triple threat that happens, especially when we're dealing with a lot of these cases. I think all of us are quite passionate about gender equality as an SDG. And of course, HIV, teenage pregnancies, and GBV are some of the highest cases that we have received in our work. So I have managed to work with Connect to Retain before, especially in terms of policy making. So I've seen some of the good work that you've done. So again, congratulations to that. Congratulations to you for that, and you, of course, your team. And to Victoria, are you able to respond to the same question in terms of what is the impact that your CBO has been able to have, especially in relation to having to improving SDG 5?
Yes, with Women for Women CBO, where our key partner is FIDA Kenya. I'm happy to report that with FIDA Kenya, they have really trained us. And also, because I was one of those who provide an MCA in my ward, I got to be trained in the FIDA Academy. And I really appreciate the good work FIDA is doing. And also FIDA, through FIDA Kenya, we also, the training they gave us, we trained on issues of gender-based violence, those who have been violated, and we also link them. And even somebody has been, sorry, in case somebody has been, there is a case of gender-based violence, we usually train our community on how to report the reporting process, where you have to report even if a child who has been defiled, to report before 72 hours. We also, through FIDA Kenya, trained us on how to use media, because before we went to FIDA Kenya, some of us in Women for Women did not know how to report cases in case there's a case which has happened. So I'm happy for our key partner, FIDA Kenya. And also on issues of capacity building, we do capacity building, and I'm happy even FIDA Kenya came to Machakos. They trained chiefs and assistant chiefs on issues of succession, issues of gender violence, because when things happen to the community, the first person to spot on your area is the area chief. So FIDA is a key partner. We also have others whom we collaborate with. We have PEN stands for Property Eradication Network, where we have CBOs, we have networks, we have NGOs, CBOs, we are faith-based organization where we sit together, we discuss and highlight the issues within our community. We also have Soroptim International, which came to our area. They did some abolition blogs to our schools. They also gave women water tanks. We also have Equity Bank, which also train our women on issues of banking, and also they gave water tanks in terms of loan. We still have Plan International, which is also we collaborate with on issues of education, issues of scholarships, and also donor funding. And I'm happy for the collaboration, and we are still pushing. We are pushing to get women to know their rights, and we are happy for what we are doing in the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I think from a point I can be able to gather that there is good synergy between the various stakeholders that work towards eradicating, for example, gender-based violence. So I think that collaboration really helps in terms of meeting your target as a CBO. Thank you for that. And of course, now to Dennis. The question was if you could highlight one key impactful collaboration now between your NGO and other stakeholders that has significantly advanced SDG 5, what would it be?
Thank you so much, Virginia. We have several, but now that you restricted me to one, I would say from an access to justice perspective, we've been able to have key collaborations with state and non-state actors. And I would look at state actors, for instance, the ODPP, the police, the judiciary, various offices that serve under the judiciary, that is probation officers, children officers, and what have you. So one of the key collaborations that has helped us is perhaps through a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations in court users committees, a lot of courtesy calls with various judicial actors, we've been able to have access to justice enabled for purposes of enabling that women are able to access justice, so that we're able to have a good platform that canvasses the best platform for access to justice, thus enabling gender equality. It was primed previously, prior to FIDA engaging such platforms, that access to justice was extremely limited to women. And you would find that through this particular angle, the organization was actually able to ensure that it is not just enough that people are able to get to court, but are their matters able to be heard on time, are matters are able to get to conclusion in a justiciable manner. For instance, matters of SGBV, matters of GBV, are we able to curb corruption in such matters and ensure that at most possible, justice is not only done, but is seen to be done. So that was one key collaboration that enabled us to be able to push gender equality, that is that SDG number 5, from the perspective of access to justice. I would have wished to add more, but you've requested for one.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I love the fact that we at least work from the same organization. So I can also, of course, add to the fact, because we work in different departments. And of course, for us, we've also been able to do the same through engaging some of the women caucuses, especially in parliament, because we've had a focus for having women in politics and increasing their participation in politics. So we've had some good engagement with some of the caucuses like EWOPA and some women caucuses at the county assemblies, which have actually impacted some of the gender responsive legislation, just to be able to improve how women integrate with the system. So thank you for that, Dennis. And also, just before I let you go, I have the second question to ask. Which is, how can FIDA Kenya as an NGO ensure that their programs and initiatives align with SDG 5 and adapt to evolving needs and challenges? So what can FIDA do to be able to ensure that what we do at FIDA is able to actually align with the SDG framework, and how can it adapt to evolving the needs and the challenges that people face on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so to have that perspective in mind, if I get your question correctly, you are looking at the perspective of how can the organization be able to align not only to SDG 5, but also to the other SDGs.
Yes.
Yes. So you'll find the other SDGs are a bit diverse. So one of the things that will enable FIDA Kenya, and which I'm sure it's already on the path to, is innovation. You will find that in the recent day and age, we have the introduction of artificial intelligence. We have the introduction of a lot of digitization and digitized systems in a bid to correlate and or be in the same space and sphere with climate change, so that we are now promoting a lot of climate justice. So one clear-cut structure that will enable not only FIDA, but every other organization to be able to align to the SDG 5 and all other SDGs is innovation. Innovation will enable anticipation of new areas of redress within the SDGs. Innovation will also be able to assist people in problem solving, especially in the most recent cases here in Kenya. We've been able to see that flooding has become more or less a national catastrophe. And the only way that would require, or the only process that the government was able to sort out those who were in crisis was to become innovative. It did not need the rudimentary process of just evacuate and go somewhere, but introduction of new systems and measures that say that we not only need to look at the drainage, but we also now need to be able to anticipate what this particular climate change is doing to the environment. So the best thing that what we should be looking at this instant is how innovative are we? Are we strategic? Are we looking at problem-solving skills that can anticipate up to 5 years, up to 10 years? Are we able to anticipate new problems as they come, both real and imagined? Can we just sit down and say, if we are sorting this out, what are these unforeseen circumstances that are able to arise from us solving this problem today, so that we prevent an issue or an arising of various surprises in the future? So to be able to align, one has to be able to think not outside the box, but also into the future. Are you able to think so far into the future and say, if the SDGs are coming to an end in the next maybe 3, 4, 5 years, what else are we going to anticipate after the SDGs? Is it just going to be gender equality or gender conformity or non-conformity? What is it that we can anticipate? This is the only thing that will be enabled, not just FIDA Kenya, but any other civil society that is within the human rights space, to be able to detect and cure in advance any issue that is within the SDG and may arise after the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for that. So to our other guests, Victoria and Emmanuel, also a kind reminder just to leave our videos on. So Victoria,
Yeah.
you can be able to proceed.
Yes. One thing I can say is that FIDA Kenya needs to invest in capacity building and to train more. For example, when they came to Machakos, they trained some chiefs. So my view is that they can train more chiefs, if possible, to go to what level, so that the chiefs can know in case somebody comes to report a case, maybe a case in issues of land, the chiefs can assist the person who has come to report. So I would love to have more people being trained. Also, FIDA Kenya to partner, to collaborate with that government, to collaborate with the government, business, and the other CSOs to pull more resources together, so that we can have we can have resources to train more people, and also to address the challenges in regardless of issues of gender equality. They can also raise awareness to churches, to universities, even to women groups. So I would love FIDA Kenya to come down to the village. I think by doing so, we'll be able to address issues of gender-based violence, issues of land cessations, because the community are aware of what is needed of them. So that is my observation. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Victoria. And just as a, by the way, apart from as FIDA Kenya, what do you feel like Women for Women can be able to do in relation? Just give me one point you feel that Women for Women can be able to do to be able to enhance gender equality, to promote gender equality at the grassroots level.
Women for Women, what we usually do, we usually meet women and train them on issues of capacity building. And also we train them on how to report in case there's a case within them. So Women for Women, we are doing a lot of work. We are also doing mentorship programs to schools. We are visiting the schools, training the girls and the boys in case there's a need, in case there's somebody who has violated them, on how to report the cases. We are also training them, the women in groups. We also visit the church. We also do issues of climate change, because Women for Women, we are also ambassadors of climate change. We train the community on how to adapt the climate change, and also tree planting. Those are some of the exercises we do within our community as we advocate for our community.
Oh, thank you so much. And last but not least, Mwakera.
Thank you. I think just to maintain our relevance as partners and CSOs in this field, one of the key inputs that we need to factor in is probably around the need for regular, and for this case, let's call it continuous assessment and community engagement. Feedback is key. We normally don't call it feedback. It's actually feed forward, because whatever information you get informs what you do in the future. So for this case, allow me to use feed forward. Dynamics keep changing every day. The response for answer A today is not the right response for the same question tomorrow, based on various factors. Let us keep being informed by community. Let us listen to what the community needs. Let us design our programs in a way they are not only sustainable, but also responsible to the need at that particular time, of course, factoring also in the near future. This is not to mean that innovation shouldn't be put in practice, but we are innovating along the context of the desire of the people that we are currently serving on ground. Also, the other thing is financing around the NGO world is significantly shrinking due to global factors that are way beyond our control, and probably issues around flexibility and planning need to be factored in. It's about time we start moving into caucuses. Two is always better than one. Can we start forming alliances? Can you probably leverage on our own strengths and weaknesses? Can we partner with each other, so that, because in the end, you're all here because of service to community. It's not necessarily a competition or a showbiz of who's doing what. But if somebody else can benefit the same community that I intended to reach out to, it is a win for me. If an advent of zero poverty and all forms of poverty, and its feeder doing that, it may not necessarily be connect to retain. As long as our communities within the coastal region are benefiting, so be it. So probably that's another thing, is also diversification of funding. Not only should we go for donor funding, issues around philanthropism, volunteer work, resources are not always financial. It can be technical and human resource, where we don't have the technical capacity. Probably volunteerism as well. A good case of example in Kenya is Red Cross. Red Cross works so well because of volunteers. It isn't flood disaster. Those are not employees who are there with job descriptions and salaries. These are just volunteers who abide by the values of the organization and always are willing and ready to support if need be. And that is a good example where you're using less resources but to solve major problems. And at some point, it's actually on crisis basis. The other thing I think is capacity building and continuous learning. As organizations and partners, we need actually to build our capacity. It's about time we need to move from actually investing in people towards investments into systems and structures. We have organizations that are run by specific people. The day he or she leaves or something happens, the organization stops. It's not that they were doing a bad job, it was bad leadership. But basically, most of our institutions lack structures. We are performing well courtesy of talent. And at times, talent is not sustainable. You reach a certain age, you can't run. It's about years you will not hear of Kipchoge because it catches up with time. While we may be the best in the game, there are factors that we cannot control, including age and other things. So it's about time we also need to invest in our own capacities and structures as institutions. Our governing bodies, our policies within our organization need to be aligned in a way that they can guarantee and pass the test of time and future. And of course, continuous learning. Let's look at what my sister is doing in Eastern region. What can I borrow from there? What are the commonalities between Coast and Eastern, and what can I take from there? What can I share with? Sometimes some of us hold even information, and for God so loved the world, it should be one of among sins. Somebody, you just hang on an opportunity and information, and for no reason, just for the pride that if you need something, just go to Mokera. And it's actually wrong, and that is one area we want to come. The other thing is monitoring, evaluation, and learning is a key aspect. Some of us we just implement. We don't actually take time to evaluate. Our interventions are actually working? How effective are they? What lessons are they bringing up? What are the kind of outcomes that we need to factor in and to place? These are some of the aspects that we need to feature into place. And of course, somebody just talked of innovation. I only want to add past that, but innovation and technology is an issue of our day, especially in times where resources are quite restrained. How do you tap into technologies? AI is with us here. Can we leverage in AIs to supplement our strategies in human resource? This and many others, I submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also in terms of, first of all, before I proceed, thank you so much for our listeners. If you have any question, feel free to raise it in the chat group. You'll be able to ask our guests before we finish the session. And of course, in relation to what we are doing, what are some of the challenges? And I would like to give the speakers 1 minute each to respond to what are some of the challenges that we are facing in doing the work that we do or implementing SDGs at our level, and how do you mitigate some of these challenges? So because I don't want a myriad of challenges, just give me 2 challenges each, and what do you do to be able to counter them, or how do you mitigate these challenges? So Dennis, you can kick us off. What are the 2 challenges that you face, and how do you mitigate this solution? How do you mitigate these challenges, or what solutions do you have to be able to deal with these challenges? A minute each.
Okay.
So Dennis, you can be able to kick us off. Dennis, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. I was having some slight network issue, but now I'm okay.
That's okay.
So you've asked us for at least 2 challenges.
Yes. And what are the solutions that you've had to be able to mitigate those challenges? In 1 minute.
The first most predominant challenge that I think we've been able to face is
Yes.
the lack of political goodwill. The lack of political goodwill has been a great hindrance towards meeting some of these SDGs. And one of the ways that we've been able to mitigate this particular challenge is continuous conversations with the political leadership, with the grassroots level leadership, because we discovered that without continuous conversation, what one would regard as communication, then there is a lack of understanding of what the role of the government is and what the role of the civil society organizations are as well. So that has been one key factor. The second key, and I'm sure this will cut across all presenters on board today, that is the financial aspect of it all, the funding, the shrinking space of the donor funding. And one of the ways
about what that CBO Act stands for, and the legal parameters and anecdotes that have been proposed within the new act in its implementation is a whole new deal. We know probably we'll go to a place we shall need to change it because the nomenclature has also been mentioned within the act and such like issues. The other thing is the Enhanced Data Protection Act also catches up with us as partners and implementers. We work within a data reliant world, from beneficiaries' information to data. We do programming from financial aspects. And most of these regulations are actually embedded towards financial restraint. So for small and upcoming organizations, it may be very hard to comply with the new Data Protection Act and the PBO Act. And we may lose majority of this organization. And by essence, they do a lot of work that is quite recommendable. The other thing is I've talked of technicalities around technology divide, that while technology is there for us, we may all admit that it's not in terms uniform across board. So the kind of technologies we can use here in Kilifi may not necessarily be the same in Nairobi. Actually, in Nairobi will be a bit advanced, and we are all in the same field. So such issues around technology divide and other aspects around technology are key issues. In a digital space, a lot of things are going into digital. A lot of infrastructure that is needed in running organization structures and systems are technology dependent. And this is a huge aspect that we are doing. Most partners and donors don't fund these systems and structures. So we are forced to actually go down and deep into our pockets to fund them. But however, in the myriad of all this, yeah, we have to stand and adjust and amend to the test of time, which is quite doable. So those are my two outstanding challenges currently that most partners are facing across board.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, Victoria, you have 1 minute.
Yes, I think one of the things which had us from working well is maybe poor networking and the lack of coordination leading to duplication of projects. You get an NGO coming doing a project and another NGO coming doing the same project. Another one is political interference, where the government can also impose regulations and which hinder the work of NGOs. So I would propose the government to support the initiatives of NGOs and CSOs so that the community can get what is needed to support them. Also, they can also, instead of doing duplicating projects, if they are other NGOs, they can do other projects. Instead of advocacy, they can focus on climate action issues, even issues with clean water. So I think those are the 2 points. And with Women for Women, our vision is to have a sustainable future and improve social, economic, political, environmental well-being of the community. So that's our vision as Women CBO.
Thank you so much for that. And I've seen a few questions from some of our online listeners. There's one for Mwakera. I want to be able to give you 1 minute to respond. So from your perspective, how can the old work with the young to create a better future? So the intergenerational collaboration, how do you believe that the young can work, the old can be able to work with the young people to be able to influence a better future for ourselves in 1 minute?
Thank you. I think for us to, like in any community, for us to start working together actually, is for us to know who we are. If the young can identify who we are, what are the privileges that we have, what are the advantages that we have, and what are our restraints, we will be in a better place to work with them. And if the old can appreciate, they come in a different form, and the young people have different perspective that may not be necessarily that those that align to them. That is the first working environment that we have. And for good case example is the various divides that we have. While the old were more into systems and structures and longevity and everything, some of the young generations, people, most of us are into quick fixes and quick results, and we easily give up. And the merge between us and the two is experience. And the bad thing about experience, you can't be taught experience, you have to live about it. So the first thing is actually appreciating that the young need to appreciate the old brings something that we don't have, and the old need to appreciate the young brings something that they may not necessarily have. That's the first aspect. So if we can win that, we are in a better place. Other thing that we need to actually acknowledge is the fact that while we may be different in terms of our age set and segregation in terms of these young and old, we're in a level playing field. At some point, we live in a world of survival for the fittest. So there comes a time that they all need to realize we need to take the mantle without necessarily looking into what the young are saying and what are the inputs. It may be a very delicate point, but in practice, it has shown a time it comes where that the right thing is always white and black, and it is all known. It's very obvious this is the right thing to do. Whether we have divided opinion based on generational, sometimes we just have to do it. And it calls for hard decision and tough calls. And this has also gone into our political space, where people are not actually making decisions because, oh, young people will feel this, or will feel this. So let us know our strengths and weaknesses, appreciate each other, and sometimes let us know the right way. And the right way doesn't factor the old or the young. It is black and white. I submit.
Thank you for that. That was quite conclusive. And there's also one more to Dennis, that they say lawyers aid corruption in some way by defending dibs in court. What is your say on this?
Wow, that's a very heavy question on behalf of Kenya, not just not just the individual lawyers. That lawyers aid corruption on behalf of?
They're saying that lawyers aid corruption. So in terms of they aid corruption by defending thieves in court. So what
By
is it?
defending
What
thieves in
do you
court.
think about this? Do you believe that actually lawyers aid corruption by defending thieves in court, or what would you like to respond to that?
Okay. That question in itself requires a lot of wisdom in its answer. And I would state that one of the key things that the role of lawyers, the role of advocates, most of the time is to apply the law of the land. One key thing that I usually state is that not everyone will like the law of the land. For instance, right now, I am very sure everyone has an issue, or if not everyone, most people have an issue with the Finance Act, finance law that is in place. And it's because of the economic constraints that people are facing. And you will find that the role of the lawyer is not to come and assess how you feel about the law, but to be able to explain to you what the law entails. So you will find that these people who are seeking to be protected from various acts, you'll find that the law states that everyone has a right to fair hearing, regardless of whether you committed the crime or not. So fair hearing comes to you as a human right, just as any other right within the Constitution of Kenya and within the international laws. So it is this fair hearing that gives somebody the right also to representation and to a representation of their choice. So it is not per se that lawyers are seated somewhere aiding corruption, but that aspect of perhaps defending this person, whether they committed the crime or not, would be perceived in as by members of the public as them aiding corruption. So the best way to look at it would be, I have come to realize, especially in my practice of law, that the aspect of corruption boils down to individual levels. Systems can only work if people have goodwill, if people have integrity. Systems do not work because they are there to make us work, but they work because we have ensured their functionality. That's why we will have a law, but without the goodwill to ensure that it is done, it will not be done. So it is not that the responsibility of fighting corruption is left just to the lawyers alone, but to each and every person within the Republic of Kenya. One has to ask themselves, what has been my role thus far in fighting corruption? Am I in tune with it, or am I fighting against it? There's always a popular slang in the ground that states that when corruption works for you, it's a connection. When it works against you, it's corruption. So the best perspective should be, what is my individual responsibility fight against corruption?
And I like the fact that you mentioned the right to a fair hearing for each and everyone, because as advocates, of course, we are mandated to be able to represent a client as long as it falls under our area of expertise. So exactly what you're saying. Yes, for the public, they may look at it as lawyers being corrupt, but for us, based on our ethics, we are actually mandated to represent a client as long as it's an area that we are able to, as long as it's an area we have expertise in. And thank you so much to our guests. Last but not least, allow me, because we are out of time, allow me to ask the final question in terms of, for each of our guests today, what is your parting shot? In the sense that if you are the CEO of the NGO Board Association, what policy would you set in place to help align, NGOs or your CBO in achieving SDGs in general? So you can give us a parting shot in terms of your call to action. What would you advise the young people or the NGO board to be able to do to advance SDGs, and also maybe to somebody else? There's somebody you may actually consider that apart from the young people, apart from the CSOs and the NGOs, there's somebody I'd like to, have a call to action to. So feel free to give this in 1 minute for each, and I will be timing this. So Victoria, since you're not provided for a chance to speak, allow me to start with you. What would you be able to advise as a call to action to the young people, to the NGO board, to anyone who's working in the CSO sector what would you advise them to do in relation to promoting SDGs in Kenya? In 1 minute.
One is to push for funding for development projects like universal health cover, also advocacy and awareness, also social protections bills like Inua Jamii to help the vulnerable, and also public-private partnership for the community to get its awareness, and also introduction of empowerment programs to our community. That is my passion. Thank you.
Thank you for that. You've kept the time. Wonderful. Let's go to Mwakera.
Thank you. I think the NGO board, and this now it's called the PBO Regulatory Authority. It's about time they streamline their processes, reduce bureaucracy hurdles, and make it easier for organizations, especially upcoming and grassroots organizations, to walk through the sector and advance. Otherwise, I would like to encourage the young and grassroots organizations that are coming up. I anticipate and I believe we are here for a purpose and for a cause. Let us stick to the cause. Let us not compare ourselves to others. They are there because they started it off, and to end it, my mom once told me, and I would like to share this with the general public today, that you don't need to be great for you to start. But one thing is common. You have to start to be great. God bless you all.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, Dennis.
Thank you so much. One of the key things I would give, the key takeaways for the young people, young upcoming organizations, mentorship and collaborations. That's the best key that will be able to enable you navigate through. Mentorship, because those who have gone before you have knowledge and technical know-how and know the kind of challenges they've gone through. And also it's a good spot not to repeat some of the mistakes they made. We always say it is best to learn from other people's experiences. And then for the PBO, political goodwill. Political goodwill will go a long way. For those systems to work, for the upcoming CSOs, for those NGOs that are still on ground, political goodwill will ensure that those at the community level, members of the public, the citizens of Kenya will be able to benefit greatly from a surge towards the SDGs, even as we approach 2030. They'll be able to benefit greatly from the funding that we are getting, from the assistance, the aid we get from outside, from foreigners, even from within. The only way we'll be able to achieve all this if we have internal political goodwill. That will take us a great way. Thank you so much, and God bless you all.
Thank you so much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of our session today. Thank you to our listeners who've been with us for the time. Thank you to our guests who made the time to also appear and be able to respond to some of the questions. And of course, thank you to the GYF family at large for being able to make this session happen today. And I would like to call upon the young people who are listening, and of course, anyone who will listen after. We currently have an archery instructor course for 2024 that we are undertaking, and we are calling upon any young people who may be interested to take part in this. You can be able to sign up. Please follow us on our social media pages on Facebook and on LinkedIn. You'll be able to see a lot of this information that we are talking about today. So thank you so much for joining us. Of course, my name is mentioned earlier. I'm Valdivia Virginia, your host for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. All the best and goodbye.